Today, we're going to unpack one of the absolute biggest shifts in how the internet works. We're talking about the evolution of search. We'll dive into how search engines like Google went from being simple word matchers to, well, to actually understanding the world, and what that means for literally anyone trying to get found online.
So, let's just get right to it with a question that I think a lot of us have asked at some point. Is SEO, is it really just a game of finding and using the right keywords?
And the short answer? Yeah, it absolutely used to be just that. But now, the digital world is playing by a completely different set of rules.
To really get what's happening now, we've got to rewind the clock a little. For years, the SEO playbook was, surprisingly simple. It was really built on just two core ideas.
It was basically a two-step dance. First, you'd figure out what exact words people were typing into the search box, and you'd make sure your pages were stuffed with those words. Keyword density, right? And second, it was a popularity contest. You had to get links from other websites pointing to you. The more links you had, the more important you looked to Google. Simple as that.
But then, everything changed. There was this quiet revolution happening inside the search engines. That got smarter, a lot smarter. And that old familiar playbook, it pretty much became obsolete overnight.
And here's the heart of that shift. We moved from basic keyword matching to what's called semantic understanding. Back in the day, if you searched for car price, Google would just show you pages that had the words car and price. That's it. Today, it understands the concepts. It knows a car is a vehicle, that there are models and brands, and it understands your intent, that you probably want to find a value calculator or see listings or compare different options. It's really the difference between reading a dictionary and having an actual conversation.
So how does this magic work? Well, it's powered by this linguistic idea called distributional semantics. The principle is actually pretty simple, but it's so profound. Search engines now figure out a word's real meaning by looking at all the other words it hangs out with across the entire web. Context became king.
And that brings us right to the new way of thinking, the modern paradigm. To win at search today, you have to stop thinking in keywords and start thinking in entities.
So what on earth is an entity? Well, think of it like this. A keyword is just a random string of letters. An entity is a thing. It's a real-world concept that Google understands, with its own properties and connections all stored in its giant digital brain, the knowledge graph.
And this idea is incredibly broad. We're talking about, everything. Search engines see authors and their books as connected entities. They link organizations like NASA to their locations, their missions, their astronauts. Every single product, person, and place becomes a node in this giant web of knowledge. These are the real building blocks of modern search.
And get this, it doesn't even stop with tangible things. Search engines also treat abstract ideas as entities. The very concepts you see here, like topical authority or PageRank, are things Google can identify, understand, and then use to evaluate other content. It's kind of mind-blowing when you think about it.
Okay, so the theory is cool. But how do we actually do this? What is the modern playbook for building the kind of authority that search engines will trust and reward? What does that actually look like in practice?
It really boils down to three core pillars. First, you've got to build what's called a semantic content network, basically becoming the most helpful source on your topic, period. Second is making sure your technical excellence is on point, so search engines can actually see and understand all your great work. And third, the glue that holds it all together is consolidating brand signals, proving your expertise across the whole web, not just on your own site.
So, what is a semantic content network? It's about going so much deeper than just one-off articles. It means you're creating this comprehensive web of content that covers an entire topic from every single angle. You're not just answering the main questions, you're answering all the related follow-up questions someone might have. Everything is logically linked together, satisfying all kinds of user intents, and ultimately establishing your site as the go-to definitive source for that subject.
But look, all that amazing content doesn't mean a thing if the foundation of your house is shaky. Technical SEO, we're talking things like fast page speed, clean structured data. It isn't just a box you check off. It's the language you use to speak directly to search engines, to make sure they can clearly see, read, and understand the authority you are working so hard to build. Now, I know what you might be thinking. This all sounds great in theory, but does this whole entity-focused approach, does it actually work in the real world? Well, let's take a look at some results.
Here's a quote from BKM Kitab. They're an e-commerce site that was really struggling after a big Google update. They shifted their entire perspective to be entity-focused, and guess what? They were able to completely turn the ship around.
Or check this out, a multilingual website applied these very principles. In just 6 months, their organic growth exploded by 425%. That's not just an improvement, that's a total game changer.
How about a SaaS company? They went all in on building out their topical authority. The result? A 40-fold, that's 40, increase in traffic. They went from being a small player to a major authority in their space.
And here's what that can look like at scale. One project went from a respectable 10,000 clicks a month to over 500,000 every single month by applying these principles holistically. I mean, the numbers really do speak for themselves.
Just look at this simple chart from a B2B SEO project. You don't need to be a data scientist to see what's going on here. The before bar and the after bar. The strategy shifted and the results, while the results followed in a massive, undeniable way.
So, let's bring this all home. What's the big final takeaway here? It really all comes down to a huge shift in mindset. We've moved way past the idea of just doing SEO to a website, like it's some checklist of tricks. That's old news. The real goal now is strategic. It's to build your entire organization into a genuine, verifiable authority, an entity that search engines can recognize and confidently recommend to their users.
So I'll leave you with this one question to think about for your own work. Are you just making a collection of disconnected pages that happen to target some keywords? Or are you strategically building the definitive source, the absolute go-to authority for your entire topic? Because the answer to that question will define your success in the modern world of search.